So this is a diagram. Let's see if this works. There it is. So this is a diagram of my basic rocket stove cooker layout. And I've been pretty encouraged lately because I've seen others now starting to adapt this. And this is just a really simple concept that I came up with probably about 10 years ago. I think this drawing's about 10 years old now. And this is it in its simplest form. And this is nothing new. You guys have all seen this. I did a ton of videos on this type of build. They weren't always using the same base. You know, sometimes they were batch boxes, or like the one we looked at last week or whatever, it was going to go in the same configuration. But what's important here is not the core, but basically we have a J-tube core. What's important is that the exhaust comes out just under the barrel, which is, it doesn't have to be the barrel. Let's call this the cooktop lid. And the cooktop lid has a smaller hole, 4-inch diameter hole, that's just slightly smaller than system size. So here it's a 6-inch exhaust, so this is a 6-inch chimney, and a 4-inch hole. I didn't do a very good job drawing it. My scale is all off. But picture this hole up top is 4 inches, and this is 6 inches. And the reason that's important is because even when that's open all the way, this stove is still relying on the gases cooling in the barrel and falling down and exiting out through the chimney. And in doing that, what you eventually get is a stove that's drawing hard enough. You know, once you get draft established, it can draw hard enough that as you progressively, you use a flap to open or close to change the size of this hole. And, you know, at some point it can be like half open or even more, and no flames or smoke, you know, or exhaust are coming out there. It's being pulled down to the chimney. And the reason this works so well is you can put your cooking implement right over the top, and if it's in the case of like a pot, like if you're just boiling water, the pot could actually set down in there. There's still enough flow to go out through the chimney for the stove to rocket, right? So the stove is going to run at full tilt, which is important, right? We don't kill the draft by adjusting the cooking rate. And in doing that, we create maximum heat up top. So what's cool and unique about this, what I was looking for was basically a way to create an adjustable flamed cooking heat source using solid wood fuel that doesn't smoke or put exhaust into the house. Now, we've all seen like Lorena stoves and other third world type cooker, you know, cookers designed for people in the third world, you know, to try and clean up their air quality both inside and outside, and reduce their fuel use and all of those things. And this was my approach to allow people to cook with the type of control that they're used to with a propane or an electric stove. As Mart Hale says, great heat transfer with that design, because, and it is, you can put that pot all the way down in there. And then Mart Hale says, I would imagine that this would need to be outside. And so that's kind of, I think that how can I say this? Yes, Mart Hale, in our culture, this would be an outdoor heater, or an outdoor cooker. But keep in mind that this concept of cooking over fire, in a lot of countries, we're looking for something that's simply better than them cooking over an open fire in an enclosed hut. And so this simple cooker actually, I believe, could be used indoors, not in a modern Western airtight home, But I think it could safely be used indoors in most applications because, like I said, that hole on top is smaller. And if you start the stove with the flap closed, so if that top hole is closed, and you establish good draft, then you really only need a tiny bit when that thing's raging, a tiny bit open to heat a pot, or in the case of liquid cooking, the pot would fit down in there and it would seal that hole, which we'd have it a little higher over the riser, but it would seal the hole. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is I actually believe that that this actually would be a really good alternative for indoor cooking in a lot of places where they don't have, you know, adequate indoor cooking, in some of the places where we're trying to make improvements. Yeah. So when I originally designed this, that was kind of my goal, because that was really the big push in rocket stoves at the time, you know, was these humanitarian type stoves. And I kept seeing these stoves that still didn't offer a lot of control. They didn't offer, you know, significant control over the cooking. And I thought that this was a better way to achieve that without really getting into real complex builds like gasifiers. Even those don't offer much control, but they do offer, you know, some. Basically, what I'm trying to do is create a burner, you know, like a blue flamed burner with rate, you know, the ability to rate, you know, control the rate at which it hits your pot, using solid wood fuel. And this does it very effectively, very, very simply. And so I thought that was, I still think it's very unique. And the reason I wanted to revisit it is because I still think today that this is probably the best design, not necessarily with the barrel, but just this concept is still probably the best way for people who are building themselves rocket-powered pizza ovens, rocket-powered outdoor cooking situations of any kind. You know, whether you're going to put a griddle over the top of that or whatever. The concept of having the rocket stove core, I need to boil this down so you guys know what I'm talking about, because I think you guys know, but why is it different than other things that we see? Because the other rocket stove cook solutions that we see typically don't offer an alternative path for the flue gases to go out a separate exhaust, and thus don't offer you much control over, you know, what's coming out of the riser. Because usually what it is you're just cooking right over the riser and you're adjusting temperature by adjusting what's happening in the firebox. And this is different, and I'm not the first one to do this. I'm not trying to take credit for it. This is, again, Larry Winiarski and his industrial cook stoves, where they would have the big pot suspended kind of down in that hole, in a structure just like this. It's really, you know, based on that concept. So it's not my invention, but this iteration of it is. And the simple idea of reducing that, what he had as a pot skirt, you know, was a place to put the pot, but reducing that down to be a burner hole with a flap that goes over it. Hadn't seen that anyone else do that, and it works phenomenally. So for, you know, if you were to go out into the bush and build yourself a little off-grid cabin, and you needed, you know, a camp kitchen, and you just needed to throw one up, and you were going to use it all summer, like, this would be the ultimate way to go, in my opinion. You throw your 60 bricks in a barrel with your flue pipe and put it on a sled, and, you know, run it out there or roll it out there or whatever, and you have a really great setup for really versatile cooking.